Hi there, Stampers. It's Lisa. Welcome to today's live. Today we are making a super fun card that I actually don't have in front of me. Let me grab it. Sorry about that. It was over there where I take pictures. I forgot to pull it down. But check out how fun all these little pop outs are. And of course, it does fold up and become A2, but it also stands up for a fantastic display. We're again going to be using the Made with Love Designer Series paper and the Endless Love Stampin' Up bundle. So let's go ahead and get started, although I want to show you my shirt. Oop, there we go. How fun is that? A friend of mine got me that for Christmas, and I just thought it was so awesome. Um, so let's go ahead and get started on our card. Okay, here is our Endless Love bundle. So it is for Valentine's Day, although I can see using it for weddings or, any sort of occasion. Maybe even taking the hearts and cutting them out in green and making a 4-leaf clover for St. Patrick's Day. Several little things we can do here. But today we're doing this. Okay, so we're going to start out with our base. And the base actually comes in 2 parts. And then what we're going to do is we're going to adhere them together here in the middle. Okay, so the first piece is 7 1/4 by 5 1/2, scored at 1 1/4, 3 1/2, and 6 3/4. And then the other piece is 5 1/2 by 7 1/2, and then it's scored at 3 1/4. It's actually making that 4 1/4 on this side. So we have our standard 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 when we're all folded up. There are 2 little pop outs that are going to be in the middle. So those 2 pieces, this is 3 1/2 by 5, scored at 1/2 inch, 2 1/2, and 4 1/2. And then this piece is 5 by 2 3/4, scored at 1/2 inch, 2 1/2, and 4 1/2. Again, so they're the same basic width and score lines. They're just one's a little taller than the other for a little bit of difference. And those are all done for my card in Pretty in Pink. Inside, this is 4 by 5 1/4. And then I have some Designer Series paper. These ones are going to decorate the taller of the 2 pop outs. So this is 1 3/4 by 3 1/4. Say 2 of those. This is 1 3/4 by 2 1/2. Okay, for the inside, once we lay it all out, I have these are all 5 1/4 tall. And then we have a 1 inch, a 2 inch, and 2 of the 3 inch. Then we need 1 more for the outside because we're going to see that. Then you don't have to. You could leave this blank or even stamp on it if you wanted to, but I wanted a little something out there. So that's another 2 inch by 5 1/4. And then we need some scraps for the little hearts that we're going to add on there. Okay. I got this from Kevin Thiessen, although he did things with 1/8 of an inch borders. And I know that a lot of my followers don't like that. So I just kind of cut it down to give it the 1/4 inch difference instead of the 1/8 inch difference. So if you wanted to, you could change it up. But I figured it's easier for our advanced stampers to step it up than for our less advanced trying to make the adjustment, if that makes sense. Okay, so I'm going to start out by just laying down a lot of this. I always say, I love to get rid of a bunch of little pieces because I don't want to lose anything. So I'm just going to come in and start laying down my layers. Okay. So the 3 inch is going to go on the left side of the larger, this is the 7.5-inch piece. And then I have the 7.25-inch piece over here. Okay, and I'm going to put that between those two score lines because that little 1/2 inch that's hanging over there, that's where we're going to make our connection to this one. We're just going to be gluing those two together. Okay, then this one's going to go here. This would be really fun to do this card with this side of the designer series paper if you cut it just right so that the gradation could go all the way across. That could be really fun. When Kevin did it, he used the designer series paper over Christmas and Halloween that had the little ephemera packet that goes with it. So he was able to adhere a lot of the ephemera on the inside, you know, decorating it all up. Okay, this is going to be the front of my card when it's all collapsed up. So I'm putting this on the 2-inch section. And then we have our little pop-outs, as I said. So the taller ones, we're going to get those two. And then this one is going to get the 2 shorter pieces. It's amazing that we're already moved into making Valentine's Day cards. Feels like we barely got over Christmas. But it's going to be here before we know it. And like I said, it is a great Valentine's Day set, but I know there's going to be uses for it beyond Valentine's Day. Like last year we had the Be My Valentine with the bumblebee, and I've seen quite a few with that set. Just doing spring cards with the flowers and the honeybee and all of that. So sometimes we need to just think a little bit outside the box, and we can use our stuff a lot longer than just the outside. Okay, so now we can go ahead and burnish our score lines. So anytime I do that, I'm making sure that I'm square over here. I wouldn't want to burnish my score line and have things off over here. So I'm making sure that I'm flush right there. Then we're going to go ahead and burnish this with our bone folder. Okay, so if you wanted to start from the outside, we know that this first 1.25 inch score line is going to be a mountain, then a valley, and then another mountain, and then that mountain's going to click onto here. Okay, so that's how we get kind of our accordion there. Because this is going to get tugged at a whole lot, I'm going to go ahead and use tear and tape to connect the two, because tear and tape is a nice strong adhesive that's going to hang on even if it gets tugged at, which is nice. You could also use liquid glue if you need a little more wiggle time. You just have to wiggle it into place and then give it a second to dry. The tear and tape has more of an instant stick, which works better for me because I'm usually working a little quickly. Okay, so there is our base. Super simple so far, right? Susan says looks pretty simple. Yep, it is. Definitely pretty paper. Mary said she ordered on the 6th, which was Tuesday, to get the stuff out of the new catalog, the new online exclusives. Bonus days started. 3 new kits were kicked off. There was a new product of the month. I mean, just Tuesday was nuts. All of the awesome stuff they were offering, but Mary's already received her order. So that's pretty cool that Stampin' Up! Is shipping things out that quickly. Okay, for this one, I'm going to end up putting this right here, but I'm trying to remember, as I tell you, we're going to stamp before adhering, because if I make a boo-boo, I want to be able to flip it over and do the other side. So let's go ahead and do that. And I know I want this sending kisses to be a little bit low, because we have this pop out up here. So what I might do is just lay my pop out down there, so I know, I want to be below that. Okay, when I lined up my stamps on the block, I did set it down on the grid paper on one of the straight lines. Then I set my block on a straight line, and now I have my paper on a straight line, all of which is supposed to keep me straight when I stamp, right? Okay, I'm going to use Pretty in Pink and Flirty Flamingo, which are 2 of the colors out of the paper we're using. And I did notice when I stamped these that my pad was a little extra juicy. So I'm going to want to take a back of a spoon, a block, a bone folder, something, to go ahead and just push some of the ink down into the pad, because it tends to float up to the surface. And if I'm getting too much ink, that means there's too much up there on the surface. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Have you all seen the new block holders that I'm going to be putting on my blog? These are something made by a friend of mine who has a 3D printer, and he came over and borrowed a set of my blocks and then designed the little caddy that holds them all, and said I could sell them on my website. I first asked him to design it because we used it as a gift at the Royal Retreat. So it does have the wording on the back. And the year before, we had made these. I know I've done these before in cardstock, but this time they're done as a 3D printed object, so they're a little more durable. Okay, so the Sending You, I'm going to do in Flirty Flamingo. Ooh, make sure I bring that down. I knew that looked a little high. Okay. Okay, and then I'm going to do Pretty in Pink for the Hugs and Kisses. And then this time I think I'm going to do the Flirty Flamingo for the hearts at the bottom, so that it alternates colors a little better. Okay, so now I'm ready to stick this to the inside, now that I know I don't have to flip it over, and stamp on the other side. Okay, so for these, I obviously want to make the very center a mountain. But then these ones are going to be mountains as well, because they're going to attach to the inside of the card, giving a kind of pop out like that. Okay, now the first time I put them in, I put it way up to the edge and stuck it, and it did not open very far. So I realized it had to be over here. Kevin had done his video and I had seen it kind of and watched it a little bit and thought I could go back and watch it later, but he did it on Facebook and they deleted it after 30 days. So then I had to just look at the picture of the finished card and figure it out. So this is what I decided is I'm going to butt it up to the edge of the white for these pieces. So once again, I need my tear and tape. So I'm going to put it on the two sides of each of my little pop outs. This is why I love having videos on YouTube, because I do broadcast to Facebook, but because it doesn't stay, I'm also live streaming to YouTube at the same time. And I have heard there are less little hiccups at your end in viewing from YouTube versus Facebook. So hopefully you're getting a good viewing experience over there. Which way should you store your stamp pads? I actually store my ink pads. It's kind of a trick question because I store them with the label up, but you'll notice it actually stores them upside down. They're designed in such a way that when you are closing the pad, it's making it upside down. So as the ink settles, it's settling on the top of the pad instead of the bottom, keeping it nice and juicy so that when you go to use it, it is nice and wet. But you did see that one of them was a little too wet because it was fairly new. And so then I just pushed it down with the block and I got a really great impression doing it that way. Okay, so this piece, the larger of the hearts, or the heart thing, I'm going to peel off one side. Okay, then I'm going to bring it over here and I'm going to line it up. And I'm just going a little bit inside, you know, giving it just barely a little. I don't want it to poke out, but I want it fairly even with the edge. I have fingernails making it easy to peel off the back, but you don't. If you don't, you can use the take your pick tool. That is awesome for peeling those off. I'm going to make sure that it's nice and flat, and then I'm just going to close my card. And doing it that way ensures that it's going to fold up and go into my envelope, okay? We're going to do something very similar with this other one. I'm going to peel off one side, and then I'm going to arrange it with the top up here, kind of lining it up to the edges. I'm just a hair under. And then we're going to peel off this one. And then I'm going to go ahead and close. Okay. Everybody with me so far? Any questions? I'm going to go ahead and do some die cutting. We're going to add some hearts on there. So I'm going to do some in Pretty in Pink. I'm going to do a couple in Real Red. And then I'm going to make an adjustment. We're going to do the front of this a little bit different. For that one, I had used the bow maker tool and put bows on the top of the, sorry, I'm lining up my dies over here. They're not going to match up, are they? Let's see. I put bows up at the top here, so I tied those with the bow maker tool. You all have seen me use this before, but I think it's going to be a little bulky to go into the envelope. It might leave a little bit of a bump, and so I'm going to do something different, and we're going to change one of the dies. So I needed to do a double X and an X and an O, and it didn't fit on the little piece that I had my adhesive sheet on. So I have an X and an O, and then the double X out of the other one. So I made it work. I am going to save the little heart out of the middle of the O. We're going to use that. Then I need 2 red hearts and 2 more pink hearts. So back to my die set, I'm going to use this one and this one in red. So I've got real red. And then we're going to do some scraps out of the pretty in pink. And the hearts are slightly different. I thought one would fit inside of the other, and it kind of does, but it's not an even edge all the way around. So if you were wondering if they nest one inside of each other, they kind of don't. I also wondered if this detailed one would go over the top of the smaller one, and I suppose if you laid it out just right on your card, you probably could, but the pink one is a little smaller than the red one. So once you pop all of these out, I wasn't sure you could keep, yeah, you can't really fill in all of the holes. You know what I mean? It's leaving some little gaps in the holes. But that's okay. We're not layering them, so I'm all good. And like I said, 2 more hearts. Usually I get all this die cut ahead of time, but I'm still kind of playing catch up from vacation. So hopefully I didn't lose too many of you live viewers while I'm pulling all this together. Because I have a little tricks I'm going to show you with these. Okay. So I'm going to be putting the pretty and pink hearts, which are the lighter pink here, onto this designer series paper that has the same color background, but I wanted them to pop a little bit. So in order for them to do that, what I'm going to do is bring in my sponge daubers. Okay, and this is a free download on my website if you just want the printout. If you want me to laminate it, you can order it, but it fits in this case that's on my Amazon store to hold all the various little sponge daubers. And I'm going to take the pretty and pink ink pad, and then I'm just going to sponge the edges And I'm just doing a little bit, so I'm not leaning over too far. I'm fairly perpendicular with the edge. The more that you lean over, the wider your little edge here is going to be. And I just wanted a little bit of an accent just to make it so it doesn't blend in with the background. But then I don't have room for the whole heart everywhere, so I'm going to be knocking those down a little smaller. And then I said I was going to be doing something different with the red ones. So I'm going to bring in my paper snips. And these ones have the stitching kind of all the way around the heart. And then it's got this piece that makes it kind of a tag. But I don't want them as tags. I just want them as hearts. So I'm just going to snip those off by just following along the edge, keeping the same distance from that stitch that the rest of the heart has. And then I don't have to worry about what I'm going to do about those holes on the top. But I am going to use the letters the same. So again, these have adhesive sheet. I can pick that off with the Take Your Pick tool. But then I'm going to use the Take Your Pick tool to do my alignment. So I'm just going to kind of set it on there so that I can move it around and put it exactly where I want it before I let it adhere. Oops. I need this part. There's the O. I should have one more X. There we go. For those of you who ordered with me in December, thank you. Your PDF tutorial went out yesterday by email, and then the packet for you to craft along with me will go out tomorrow. So by ordering through me, you get the PDF tutorial, the little kit to craft along with me. And then, of course, everybody gets the Stampin' Rewards, the bonus days that are going on, and the product of the month. So pretty exciting. Okay, I'm going to arrange these on the front. So I'm just adding a little bit of seal on the top and a little bit of seal on the bottom. And I'm just going to arrange them on there like that. And then I wanted this one to go right here, but it doesn't really fit. Like it runs off a little bit, and I could stick it down like that if I wanted, but I decided to just come in and cut a straight edge. And then I probably should have done adhesive sheet on the back of this, but I didn't. So I'm going to come in with a little bit of glue and be very careful. This is maybe where the Sweet Petunia glue gun could come in handy, because it is very precise in laying down the glue. Okay, so I don't want a lot of glue on there. I just want it spread out so that all of my edges stick down, because I don't want anything lifting. Okay, then I have another heart. So let's go ahead and we'll stick that one, oops, down here, but I'm going to snip that off because again, it's a little wide. And so I'm going to butt that up with the edge of the designer series paper right here. And then I'm going to take this one, and I've got half of it down here and half of it up here. So I'm going to cut kind of at an angle. Okay, so I'm going to put this one along the bottom over here. This is very similar to what I was doing with the little ephemera pieces, like the little houses, that I would cut it in half and put half on one side and half on another card or on the other side of that card. Making the most of it. I'm using one piece and actually getting two uses out of it. Okay. So there we are. There is our Endless Love fun fold card for Valentine's Day. Okay, so thank you, everyone. I don't see any more questions, so thank you for joining me, and I will see you back here on Monday for another live and another fun fold card. Thanks. Bye.